Good morning, everyone. And on behalf of the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome you all to this morning's Partner and Corporate Roundtable on doing data right through people and partnerships. For those who don't know me, my name is Jo Davidson and I'm Director of Policy at the Chamber, and I'm standing in this morning for our Chief Executive, Liz McAreevy, who unfortunately can't be with us due to finally succumbing to a bout of COVID. She's asked me to pass on her apologies, and I'm sure she'll be fine to join us next time round. It's really lovely to have you all with us this morning, and I know that we're in for a hugely interesting and insightful session and discussion. But before I introduce our three incredible speakers who'll be updating us on the work of the data-driven innovation strand of the Edinburgh and South East Scotland City Region deal, as we usually do at these events, I thought I'd give a bit of an update from the Chamber on some of the activities we've been engaged in on our members' behalf and some of the recent issues that we've been working on. Firstly, we held our second annual business festival last week on the theme of moving forward with purpose. It was another really successful online event. We had 9 separate sessions over 2 days, more than 20 speakers, 200 participants, and more than 350 logins over the course of the 2 days. We heard from some great speakers, including Jimmy Paul, who's Chief Executive of the Wellbeing Alliance Scotland, David Duke, Chief Executive of Street Soccer Scotland, and Richard Lockhead, MSP, Minister for Just Transition, Employment and Fair Work. And we talked about various themes, including how to become a B Corp, how to build more purpose into your business, and what purpose-driven entrepreneurialism means for Scotland's economy. We had some really great feedback on the session. We hope you were able to catch some of those events, but if not, they are available on our YouTube channel, so you can perhaps catch some of them over there. And there were some really worthwhile workshops and panel discussions there that I'm sure you would enjoy. Yesterday, we also hosted, in partnership with Essential Edinburgh, our first ever hustings event ahead of the next local elections taking place on the 5th of May. We heard from candidates from each of the 5 main political parties, the SNP, Conservative, Labour, Greens and Liberal Democrats, and attendees had the opportunity to put questions and comments to the candidates directly. We covered a really broad range of issues, including concerns about business rates and the impact of rising costs of doing business more generally, council support for our vital visitor economy as we emerge from COVID and the impact of Brexit bites, how we need to work together to address our climate emergency, and how we can revitalise and reinvigorate our city centre. It was a really lively discussion, as you'd expect, chaired by Ewan McGrory from the Edinburgh Evening News, and we'll be putting out a summary of the event in the next few days, so please keep an eye on your website and on your mailboxes. We will be continuing our engagement both during and after the election with the new elected members, so if there are any issues you'd like us to look at, please do get in touch as always. Work has also continued on the Just Economic Transition Group, which Liz has been asked to chair by the City Council, and which aims to support the implementation of some of the broader elements of the 2030 Climate Strategy and forms part of the Climate Strategy Investment Programme Board, which the Council has set up to oversee the City's investment plan and harness opportunities of scale and collaboration. The group has met twice now, and an outlined straw man plan for the next 8 years is in the process of being refined. We've got about 20 individuals and organisations who are part of that group. Some of those are on this call today, but if there is something you or your organisation would like to get involved in on this subject, please get in touch with us. As we all know, how Edinburgh makes a just transition to net zero is a huge issue, which will need a strong and broad collaborative approach to achieve. So please do let us know if you'd like to be part of this work. We'd really welcome the input and the support. So now on to the real business of the day, all things data-driven innovation. Firstly, I'm glad to introduce Jarmo Eskilinen, Executive Director of the Data-Driven Innovation Programme. Jarmo joined the DDI programme in 2018 from Future Cities Catapult in London. As Chief Innovation and Technology Officer, he led Catapult's research and innovation strategy and academic collaboration. In addition to his role with DDI, he is currently a board member of the Open Knowledge Foundation, a member of the Smart London Board, an advisory board member of the Centre for Smart Cities, a non-executive director at Daytopian, and a fellow of the RSA. So just a few things there on his CV, in addition to a very, very busy day job. Jarmo will provide an overview of the Data-Driven Innovation Initiative, which is reaching a critical milestone. During the next 2 years, all of the 6 DDI hubs will be opened, creating a powerhouse for collaboration with industry partners. DDI hubs will house expertise and facilities to help 10 industry sectors become more innovative through data. And Jarmo will talk about the collaboration opportunities in the first large-scale DDI anchor project and what to expect next. Before I hand over to Jarmo, just a couple of points on format. Just a reminder, as you'll all be aware, that we're recording the session today. We'll hear from each of our next speakers in turn, and then we'll open the floor to questions or comments or thoughts. The chat function will be open throughout, so please feel free to put questions in there while we hear from all 3 speakers, and we'll pick those up at the end. Or just raise your electronic hand when we get to that point of the session and you can put your question directly. As always, we want to make sure this session is as interactive as possible, so please do join in the conversation. Now it's a pleasure to hand over to Jarmo.
Very good, thank you. I share my screen with you guys. Hopefully those will work fine now. So yes, a pleasure to be with you this morning, and give a crash course of DDI in 10 minutes, doing data right. So a reminder of the basics. What we are here to do is to establish Edinburgh as the data capital of Europe, and that in concrete terms means inward investments, new entrepreneurship and new economic growth, with quite a significant aspect on the people side of things, because availability of workforce and talent is certainly one of the key bottlenecks of this sector, and that I'm lucky to have with us today also the DDI Skills Gateway, which will address some challenges regarding that domain. What we do how we realize this vision is with a significant amount of funding from the City Region deal. So DDI in total is a £661 million program, 2/3 of which goes to the capital investment from the governments and the university, and then last third is about 50-50 universities' own revenue and external partners who join in during the 10 years of delivery, which we have between 2018 and 2028. What we do concretely is to set up an innovation platform of 6 hubs in Edinburgh, which then cover different industry sectors which will benefit from data-driven innovation. And one of the hubs is kind of at the heart of everything, which is the Edinburgh International Data Facility, the engine room, the cutting-edge data analytics, storage and processing facility in Midlothian, buried in the hills, which can host and process data safely and securely across multiple domains. We are currently hosting, for example, NHS healthcare data and financial services data from major banks. This is all built on the existing excellence of Edinburgh in data, so it's not a novel idea. There's decades of history in doing data really well in Edinburgh, the largest school of economics school of informatics in Europe, and thriving financial services sector, which has then led to, for example, fintech innovation really booming in this region. So we're building on this existing excellence. These innovation hubs are in different phases of development, and quite a few of them are construction sites at the moment, but they are all already active. So we do work across 10 industry sectors, and as Joanna mentioned, we have ramped up the first what we call anchor projects. These are public-private partnerships which are significant in scale, 8-figure sums or larger, and which bring together multidisciplinary groups of innovators from the companies and from the university or universities, because Heriot Watt is part of this context. Some examples here of ongoing work. Advanced Care Research Centre is a collaboration of £19.5 million with Legal & General, which will study the future of care. How do we care? How do we support the aging nation in the future? How can technology and data help in that? How can we ensure that the person is at the heart of the care processes? So there we bring together people from engineers to social scientists to usability and user interface specialists to create new care technologies for the future. Smart Data Foundry, which started 1.5 years ago with a Strength in Places funding, 23.5 million of that, brings together or the financial sector to open finance for public good. So the open finance is of course one of the big trends in the financial services and fintech domains. Data roams freely between financial institutions and the person should be capable of managing their data feeds. But that's of course a very fast developing field and quite a messy field in many aspects. What Smart Data Foundry wants to do is to ensure that we create a fair deal on financial data where the person and also smaller companies, innovators have the opportunity to benefit from open finance. Main strands there is economic observatory to use open finance data to understand better what happens in the economy. There was already very good collaboration with the UK Treasury last year about the impact of COVID to the national economy using real data feeds. Innovation Sandbox, in which companies, innovators can come together to work with both real and synthetic financial data, try new products and services in a safe environment. And then, very importantly, data protection, battling economic crime, and developing open standards for open finance. And third example is our first project, Creative Informatics, 11 million pounds from ESRSC, which brings together creative industries and data, helping entrepreneurs and creative industry practitioners to benefit from data innovation. And this of course became massively important during the past 2 years when creative industries largely had to pivot to completely online delivery environment because of the restrictions of social distancing. So some examples, more are coming. We are now 3.5 years into a program of 10 years of delivery time. What do these projects then create or give to the region is our so-called trade KPIs, talent, research, adoption, data, and entrepreneurship. And some of these are universities' kind of bread and butter. Certainly we do research, we are going to do more excellent research, but some are very strongly targeted at benefit for the region at large. Adoption meaning helping companies to benefit from data innovation, entrepreneurs with new startups supported and launched, and then talent which spans beyond the just our own graduates to support also reskilling, upskilling workforce and working with kids on data skills and capabilities. Where are we now after 3.5 years? A snapshot, as Joanna mentioned, we are still kind of in a ramp-up phase. Building buildings is a slow thing. So now we have 2 hubs, more or less operational. The base center, which opened in 2018, and EIDF data facility, which has been just launched this spring. And of course, we have also Easterbush campus, which gets an upgrade later, but it's there already. But during the next 1.5, well, almost 2 years, all the hubs are going to go live. So it's going to be a series of openings. National Roboterium this year, Edinburgh Futures Institute in spring 23, and the last but not least, Azure Institute in the autumn of 2023. But despite still being a construction site, we are delivering results. A couple of examples, just last year, we had helped 11,000 jobs, 1,100 jobs to be created in the area. We worked during last year with 50 companies in the data-driven entrepreneurship programs, and we launched several centers besides the Smart Data Foundry, also Center for Technomoral Futures, and the first Global Climate Risk Index for Children in collaboration with UNICEF was published only last year. And we are well ahead of our trade KPIs, between 25 to 50% ahead of the current goals in each of these domains. So we are quite confident that we'll be blowing the numbers out of the water during the 10 years. I mean, as an example there, the goal for last year though was that we would have in total worked with 54 SMEs. The actual number was 115, so more than twice the goal. What to expect in the future? I want to pick up a few key points which are kind of a novel things which we want to work on. First, and you'll hear more from Alison Makersey later, is that we really want to invest in the skills development. This is not only DDI's ambition, it's the university's ambition to be more involved in the skills development of the region and Scotland, so that we can ensure that we have the best workforce to work in digital and data and other businesses which require competent workforce, and working across different stages of learners from school kids to relearning and upskilling the workforce. Second, none of the 10 industry sectors was sustainability, but that is a domain in which we certainly want to put more effort into to ensure that it sort of underlines everything which we do, and we don't do data innovation which is destructive for the planet. And third, the title of the day, Doing Data Right. We want to work closely with the public sector and the companies to ensure that we have a fair deal on data, which can balance needs for privacy, need for innovation, and need for the data for public good, that equilibrium, so that we can create a trusted data environment, which is one of the showstoppers in this domain, that people don't trust what's being done with the data. And we want to ensure that trustworthiness of government and innovation should be a responsibility and also an opportunity and not a barrier for innovation. So we're working with the Scottish and UK governments on things like data regulation and ensuring that international data flows are compatible between Europe, Scotland and the UK. That's it from me at this point of time, and I'll hand over to the moderator. Happy to answer any questions going forward, and looking forward for great ideas for the next batch of anchor projects. That's the key. Key is a collaboration with our external partners across the different industry sectors we work on. And as I said, we don't yet have anchor projects in all of those domains. So looking forward for great new ideas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jarmo. That was indeed a whistle-stop tour of what's clearly a huge, huge project with many, many different aspects to it, and obviously a lot of work already having been done in a relatively short period of time, but much, much more to do, clearly. So looking forward to maybe exploring that more when we come to the Q&A session afterwards. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so next we're going to hear from Alison Makersey, and Alison is the Programme Director of the Data Driven Innovation Skills Gateway that Jarmo touched on in his remarks. Alison joined the DDI programme in 2017 as Programme Manager, but has a long history with the Region City deal, which predates the signing of the deal, and she's been involved since its very inception. She's now responsible for the development and delivery of the Skills Gateway programme, a multi-partner initiative which aims to develop a strategic approach to increasing the data skills of people throughout the region. In addition to this role, Alison is also a board member of Citizens Advice Scotland and a member of the Skills and Knowledge Working Group, which supports the work of Scotland's AI strategy. Alison will discuss the programme's unique and innovative response to the growing demand for data skills across society. She'll cover the importance of developing data citizens, data workers, data professionals, and data leaders in a fast-changing, data-rich world, and aims to provide equality of opportunity by developing new skills pathways for a wide range of learners, as we've heard. So with that, over to you, Alison.
Thanks very much. I'm hoping I'm just about to share my screen with you. Are you seeing that now?
We're seeing in your screen, but it's not your presentation, unfortunately.
I seem to be having problems getting a hold of that presentation. It's typical, isn't it? When we practiced, it was there.
I don't know if it's
here. Let's try again, if this is working now. Is that helping? Are you seeing that now?
Yes, we're seeing slides, but you were seeing the notes. Yes, we're seeing your slides now. That's it. You're there.
Okay.
Yeah, done.
Sorry, things are never straightforward, are they, when you're hoping to share smoothly? Anyway, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come and talk to you today, and to build on the introduction and background to the programme that Jarmo has just provided. So the Data Skills Gateway is part of the skills aspect of the City Region deal, which is funded by the Scottish Government, unlike the wider DDI programme, which is funded by both the UK and Scottish. We're funded by Scottish Government. And because of that, in part, there's a very strong focus on inclusive growth. So we recognise the huge opportunity that was coming to this region out of the investment in DDI, And we wanted to make sure that people in Edinburgh and South East Scotland benefit from that by having the right skills available to tap into the opportunities being presented. We're also very aware that a lot of people involved in data and tech type roles are male and of a particular background. And we're very keen, working with SDS, to change that and open up opportunities to a wider range of learners and workers. And furthermore, we recognise that we're living in a very different world to the one that our predecessors lived in, where data literacy is an absolute imperative. And we're making sure that people in this region have a wide range of opportunities to develop that literacy, by which we mean an ability to derive insight from data. So Josh, who you're going to hear from later, was also involved from the start of this programme and brought great insight as we developed the business case. We are keen to respond to the shortages within the sector. And I heard yesterday from SDS that there are currently over 11,000 open tech roles in Edinburgh alone. So there's a huge opportunity there. And we just want to make sure people who live and work in this area are able to tap into that opportunity. You'll see on this slide to the fact that only 23% of women take up tech roles. Tech roles are only filled by 23% of women, which is something we're trying to address. We're obviously doing something right, because our initiative, which you'll hear more about in a moment, was shortlisted last year for the Talent Initiative of the Year by Digital Leaders, and we were down in London for that. So I think we're really tapping into something that is having its day. You've seen this slide already from Yarmo, but it does set out the range of activity covered by our programme. So there are essentially 4 pillars spanning the whole skills pipeline, with activity in schools, the 4 regional colleges, all of the universities, and then working with people in work via a programme run out of the Data Lab. And I'll tell you a little bit more about each of these now. So the programme was launched in June 2019 with an event at Pollock Halls, where we brought together a number of young people from across the region to ask them what they thought a data town would look like. So we asked them to think about where data is collected and how that data might be used to drive forward business opportunities and create good. It was a really successful event and has actually informed a lot of the work we've been doing since. I'll start first by giving a quick outline of the schools programme, which is run out of Murray House at the University of Edinburgh, which has a number of dimensions to it. The programme's looking at developing curriculum, materials, building on existing subject areas, but also shaping up a very interesting proposition around data science. We're also setting up knowledge sharing hubs so schools can share best practice, and I'll come on to that in a moment. We've invested quite heavily in CPD activities for teachers and trainee teachers to make them more confident about using data literacy in their classrooms. And we're looking at opportunities to work with industry. So we've already had quite a lot of engagement with RBS, with Cloudreach. We've been talking to City Fibre and used some of their data as part of lesson planning. And we're talking just now with the Scottish Tech Army and Scotland IS about how we can bring more people from industry into the classroom. So if anyone's interested in being part of those discussions, please let me know afterwards. The team is also looking at innovative ways to deliver material. And because of COVID, you can imagine we had to be quite fleet of foot and adapt our proposals, because we haven't been able to get into schools in quite the way we'd originally planned. But we've developed a really interesting and innovative set of live lessons in partnership with SDS, which actually are being offered to people right across Scotland. It's not just something that we're delivering locally. We've already reached 15,000 pupils with this series of lessons. And these look at ways in which we can bring data science to life, embedding in current issues. So for example, around climate change, we ran a session at COP, which generated a lot of interest, looking at how data science can help schools reduce their carbon footprint. And as I mentioned, we're doing a lot of work to develop curriculum resources, working with SQA on the first school-based data science award, the National Progression Award, which delivers training from kind of S4 right through to 6th year. And we're developing resources which are shared right across the programme. This is the really exciting thing about the way we're working. So the schools team are sharing resources with the colleges and vice versa. So we're getting really good value for money from our investment. And I mentioned seminar series that we're running for teachers. This is trying to bring teachers from a wide range of subject areas into our program, not just people that are teaching computer science, which we haven't got enough, but people who are teaching geography or sports science and so on, looking at embedding right across a range of subject areas. And a very exciting recent development has been the launch of the region's IoT, or Internet of Things project, where we invest in kit across the school estate, which will eventually reach into all of the region's schools, enabling children to gather data from a range of sensors and then use that data in the classroom. So our program is funding teachers to develop resources to bring that data to life. And this was the launch event at Roslin Primary just before Christmas. Great to see that all the representatives were girls as well. They were so enthusiastic about what they were doing. Moving on now to the college program. And as I say, this involves all 4 of the region's colleges. And this is quite wide ranging in its approach too. We're embedding data across curriculum areas, from subjects ranging from business to health and social care to sports science. And we've actually been working with some young people on the health and beauty courses most recently. So that's embedding data modules across all subject areas eventually. And we're also looking at running free courses, working with third sector organisations to target particular learners. So, for example, we've got a couple of projects running just now, one with access to industry and another with East Lothian Works, where we're bringing non-traditional learners onto our programme, supported by third sector organisations who provide wraparound care. We've done something similar with women returners in Fife, working with Equate Scotland. We've also rolled out a very ambitious programme of staff upskilling, again, as with the schools programme, to build confidence amongst lecturers to teach the material. And a very interesting project that I thought might be of interest to people on this call was we used some funding to train sole traders in the Borders, working with the college there, to introduce them to data science. And we've just run a couple of very exciting events using the school-college partnership teams, one in the Borders College and one in West Lothian. And there's a picture there of the West Lothian event, where pupils that visit the college on a weekly basis were introduced to data science. And that's where we tapped into learners on a wide range of courses that wouldn't normally think about engaging with this kind of activity. Really successful KPIs already. 1,400 college learners now studying an element of data science. We're really only just beginning at the moment. We've delivered a number of these free into-work courses. I touched on the women returners already. And nearly 400 staff have engaged or are engaging in CPD sessions now. The university programme, this builds on the work that Yarmo outlined in the DDI presentation. This brings in now Queen Margaret and Edinburgh Napier universities, and they've received funding to embed data across a wide range of skills areas. So we've got people studying data science on nursing courses now and on a wide range of business modules at both universities. We've stood up a new data science course at Napier, and we've given funding to ePlacement Scotland to provide work experience for students studying data science or computer science across the region, to make sure that they get that experience whilst they're studying and hopefully stay in the region on qualification. So we've provided 60 placements so far as part of that programme. And then moving on to the work aspect of this, which I'm sure is of interest to you all, this is the programme that's been run out of the Data Lab and has received a lot of interest from government. In fact, the team have almost doubled the funding by leveraging additional funds from elsewhere. And so have been able to roll out this programme more widely than just in the region. And there are 4 dimensions essentially to this work. One is the development and articulation of what a data skills framework looks like and how that might be rolled out within organisations. Funding for training providers, organisations and individuals to begin an upskilling or reskilling journey. A data skills portal that directs learners to appropriate training in this region and beyond. And then a programme to upskill organisational leaders to help them understand the potential for data-driven innovation within their organisation, and then the skills they need to develop to drive forward that ambition. So there's just a flavour of what we mean by a data skills framework. And we're not just training high-end data professionals, data scientists, we're also talking about upskilling citizens so they can use data to be more informed about the way their communities work. We're thinking about people who are going to be working alongside machines like care workers who use sensors within a care home setting, making them become more data literate workers. And then, as I've already mentioned, looking at data leadership as part of our programme. So there's a range of the skills that are covered. The Institute of Computing has stressed the importance of signposting people to effective and affordable training provision as part of an upskilling journey. And that all comes under the remit of the Data Skills for Work programme. We've already supported 250 learners in this region and many more beyond through our Data Skills Credit, engaged with 15 employers to date, again, just in this region and more beyond. And we've recruited an additional set of training providers who are developing really interesting and bespoke training provision, kind of to shape to the needs of our programme. I also wanted to mention some courses that are being run out of the Bayes Centre at the university, funded by SFC, which are available to people that live and work in the region and which cover a wide range of sectors. So have a look at that if you're interested in upskilling, because there's some really innovative courses there delivered through a range of models. And then I mentioned at the start of the talk the need to ensure inclusive and diverse opportunities, and we're showcasing as part of our programme a range of people who work in data science roles who've ended up there through very interesting routes and who really want to tell their story and encourage others to think about upskilling in data and then looking at how that data provision can enhance the way their organisations are delivered. So look out for this campaign online. We're just about to launch a new series, and we've had very positive feedback from those individuals that we've already covered. So that's me for now. So it was a bit of a whistle-stop tour in 10 minutes. There's so much more I could have said, but I hope that gives a flavour of what we're up to. Please come in with any questions and I can provide further information after this session.
Thank you so much, Alison. Again, another whistle-stop overview. The projects are just obviously so vast and huge. I'm sure you could speak about them for quite some time, but I think that the skills issue is a particularly pertinent one at the moment. You know, we're hearing about skills shortages across a range of sectors, and particularly in IT, and the acuteness of that issue. So really interesting to hear about the work that you're doing on that, and I'm sure we'll have lots of questions on that when we get to the question portion of the session, because as I say, it is such a pertinent issue at the moment. So thank you so much for that. Okay, so finally we're going to hear now from Joshua Ryan Saha, who's Director of Travel Tech for Scotland. Josh works at the University of Edinburgh's Futures Institute, where he leads on the application of data-driven innovation for Edinburgh's critical tourism and festival sectors. He previously worked at the Data Lab, where he led programmers to improve data science skills across Scotland. He joined the Data Lab from Nesta, where he established the £10 million Longitude Prize, which featured on the BBC's Horizons 50th anniversary episode. And prior to joining Nesta in October 2013, Josh worked in Bosnia and Herzegovina, developing and delivering projects related to constitutional reform and reconciliation. So I'm sure the kind of diplomatic skills that you developed in that process, Josh, have been of quite some use to you as you've moved into this particular piece of work. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Josh. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks so much, Joanne. I'm still completely dining out on that BBC Horizon thing. It was a very small part, but I keep on talking about it. Anyway, thanks so much for your time today. Really looking forward to presenting to you all. I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive into one of the DDI hubs, and within that hub, one of the sectors that we're focused on. And I have kind of two roles. One is leading the travel technology cluster, which is technology businesses focused on tourism and hospitality and leisure. And then the other side, which is very much within the sort of University of Edinburgh's Futures Institute, is around leading on trying to get more data projects into tourism festivals. So I've got far too many slides. I'm going to try and go through it really, really quickly. But what I'll do is make sure that you can get a copy of them afterwards, and I'll put my email into the chat so if anyone wants to follow up. First of all, the Travel Tech for Scotland cluster is a group of businesses that are trying to support tourism hospitality. When we've done a sort of review across Europe, we know that there's some really great hubs, Amsterdam, Berlin, Barcelona. But we think Scotland has all the ingredients to be a place that can really grow these technology companies that work in the sector. And in truth, we probably already are a bit of a hub. Of course, our biggest tech company is Skyscanner, and we have so many people who've worked in Skyscanner and gone from Skyscanner to elsewhere that has really helped a lot of travel technology companies flourish. And from what you've heard already today, amazing world-class AI and data research, of course, within the University of Edinburgh, but also in other universities as well. And Edinburgh in particular has such a thriving technology sector. So we think we're a destination for travel tech. And of course, Scotland's an amazing place to visit, Edinburgh in particular. We have about 145 travel technology businesses within Scotland. A large number of them are very early stage, but we have some great established ones as well, from Crichton to Foresight CRM, which is hotel CRM systems. And yeah, it's a great sector. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about it now. Of course, Edinburgh Futures Institute. You've got to touch upon a little bit around the future. And this was a great illustration that came from a local Edinburgh artist talking about where are the future of technology and tourism going. And I think it's a really nice image because what it tries to do is display the way that you use technology as a route to actually experience the non-technological experiences to make tourism and hospitality so important. But of course, we're currently in the midst of three crises. One, the pandemic, of course, climate change, and then this horrible war that we're seeing around and the potential impact on global stability. And I think the reason I mention this is because tourism, hospitality, travel has been perhaps one of the most significantly impacted by each of these crises, not least the pandemic, where I think we couldn't travel at all. So many of our small businesses are related to tourism or hospitality and have been really struggling, and hopefully we'll be bouncing back. We're seeing some green shoots. Climate crisis, of course, is going to, I've got an image here of Miami, but because there's some destinations, some places that may no longer exist, but also that tourism and global stability and the war and various things like that mean that what we have taken for granted for so long may not be things that we can do as easily in future. So I'm going to touch upon each of these very briefly, just in the context of travel technology and the use of data in tourism, and some of the interesting things that are happening. So first, the pandemic. Well, in 2020, we saw a massive increase in the use of technology in the tourism and hospitality sector. First, online booking. So a lot of different experiences, hotels, attractions, other things like that, pre-pandemic were actually not online bookable. It was difficult to sign in and be able to go to them. But now that has changed. An awful lot of businesses started taking on online platforms to be able to book online. Another is virtual experiences. If we couldn't experience it in person, then we tried to do it virtually. And there's really huge growth in that. And that's something actually that's sticking around. And then things like contactless or other ways to experience using technology that perhaps mitigated the need for as much face-to-face contact. So these were the three areas we saw huge growth. And in Scotland, there were some great companies already doing this or be able to expand, from online booking companies like Appointed, Supercontrol, Hop Software, all Scottish companies, to great virtual experiences like 360-degree software at the top, or Zoodoo creating amazing tours, to contactless technology like the fantastic Quick Serve from Edinburgh that is doing amazing contactless solutions to basically order your food using QR codes or perhaps just by putting your phone down on the table and bringing up the menu, which is some interesting, great tech there. It was not just that. There was some huge growth in new apps developed, from East Nuke now in Fife to West Coast Waters by a travel tech company Weatherly and other audio trails. So this is the area we saw huge growth. But we also did a lot of research within the university. One of the bits of research by Dr. Galina Andreeva was able to model the potential risk to hospitality businesses to inform government policy. And it showed that there was about 90,000 hospitality jobs at risk from a second lockdown, and worked very closely with government using this research. We also were starting to look at how we could support the city's festivals. So Dr. Morgan Curry mapped out all the ticket purchasing behaviour and mapped that against areas of multiple deprivation in Edinburgh, so that we could do more outreach to the different localities in Edinburgh, so that we could help people from different backgrounds be able to go to the festival, access it, have better transport routes, but also try and find locations where we could host events, not just within the city centre, try and disperse that population. Sorry, I think something is stopped on my screen. Is everyone seeing a black splodge in the middle? Well, bear with me 1 second. And let me reshare. It's eating away, really important time. So let me get back onto it. So I'm hoping you can see that. One thing when we've spoken to businesses, especially small businesses, at the moment was thinking around how we can understand when people might be coming back to Edinburgh, Scotland as visitors. And even before the pandemic, it was really critical to try and forecast the number of visitors coming and where they might be coming from. So we've got a project that's still going on at the moment to try and do better forecasting of visitors coming to Edinburgh. It's really hard to do forecasting at the moment because so much of the previous trends have changed because of the pandemic. So we're using a weighting system that relies much more closely on recent data. And this is a project we're going to be launching soon. And the idea is that it'll come onto an open platform so Edinburgh's businesses can start to see when we expect more visitors to come. And we're hoping that'll be useful information. So one thing we're doing as well in East Lothian, for example, had 1 million more visitors during 2020 and 2021 than it had in 2019 because everyone couldn't go abroad. And we're very fortunate to have East Lothian on our doorstep. So what we've been doing with Edina within the University of Edinburgh, which is a sort of software development group internal to the university, we developed a busyness application. So we've put sensors onto East Lothian's beaches. Then we've brought that sensor to count how many people are coming, bring up a sort of rate of busyness and how busy each of those particular beaches are going to be, put it into an app. And then in that app, it'll show you as you're driving into East Lothian or getting the train, okay, this beach is busy, this isn't, go here instead, and it'll give you a route to it. Critically, it also provides a dashboard for staff within East Lothian Council so they can better manage the surge in visitors. So on to climate change and net zero. The next decade, especially in tourism and hospitality, is going to have to require a huge increase in the use of technology, radically new ways of using technology. We're going to have to be a little bit break away from our past. One of the key things, of course, is flights. Now, we are in the process of doing massive shifts in how we do flights. Not least in hydrogen or electric flights, but that's still a bit of a way off. So there's some great travel technology companies doing green itineraries. Unfortunately, Byway are not a Scottish company, but they're a great company that are starting to operate in Scotland. And they're basically an online travel agent, but for train-driven journeys, basically, so that you can experience Europe and elsewhere by train, and they'll provide these itineraries. And I think a key word of advice for any business on the call today is try and sort of connect into some of these green itineraries because a lot more organizations are using them. We have some Scottish travel tech companies like Electric Explorer that is mapping out the electric vehicle charging stations or electric vehicle hotel spaces so that you can reduce that range anxiety that you get with electric vehicles and have tours that go through from charging station to charging station. So very great little company. One thing that is also a great driver of sort of carbon emissions from the tourism sector is, of course, energy. And Apex Hotels are trialing a great project that puts sensors within their estate so that they can monitor where energy is being used and shut down parts of the building so that if it's not being used, it's low occupancy. And that's a really great data project. Of course, one other area is how we can buy more local food. So if you can reduce the air miles of food, buy more local produce, perhaps go to a sort of lower carbon profile of food. And one of the Scottish travel tech companies actually spun out of the University of Edinburgh. It's called NextChain, and they're really connecting local businesses to the local supply chain. And then a really critical thing, Skyscanner were one of the first big tech platforms to put on greener choices. So they could put carbon emissions against their flights so people could make choices. We know that the hotel platforms like Expedia and Booking are doing the same soon. So it's really critical for any small business to start measuring their impact. So the future. With Travel Tech, the cluster, what we're trying to do is bring together groups of tourism businesses so that they can collectively work with technology companies or data. And we think we can do that in a few ways. One of the major problems in tourism and hospitality is where small businesses find it difficult to purchase the technology that they need. So we think there's a way to bring together businesses to actually collectively purchase technology for a group. Also, how can we perhaps create new types of platforms that mean that the data is kept within the businesses that are being profiled on those platforms? And we think that that's also an opportunity to then create things like data trusts so that smaller businesses or groups of them can start analyzing their own data and understanding how they can operate more efficiently. And also start innovating with new technology, much easier to do if you're working as a collective group, and also provide a way that more of the funding, more of the income going into tourism stays within Scotland. And we've seen this already in agriculture. So Smart Rural is a cooperative of different farms that are using technology. And by being a cooperative, being able to experience and experiment more with technology. That's already starting to happen in tourism. Chris Torres has found a brilliant new online travel agency for tours within Scotland that doesn't have OTAs, but is owned by the businesses themselves. And also there's a fantastic platform actually that spun out of Italy, but is a platform cooperative. It's trying to be the sort of socially led Airbnb. And, I think this would be a great help for Edinburgh in particular, which has a huge number of Airbnbs, new legislation coming in. But through this platform, what it does is it brings more of that income to projects that work to benefit Edinburgh. Now, I know I'm slightly over time, so I'm going to pass on a few things. We've started doing some projects with small businesses, and we've started doing them in this travel tech collective process. So what we did is we recognized there was a major problem in lack of staff within the tourism and hospitality sector. And we're doing a report to look at where does technology and where does data help support these small businesses augment or automate tasks that were typically done by humans that we can't employ at the moment because we have so few staff. And so we've worked with these three businesses in particular. With Savoy Park Hotel, we've started to analyze their data to understand where they can better optimize their staff profile. So where are staff? Are they in the bar? Are they front of house? Are they doing housekeeping? And that's been really, really successful. They're also matched with a Scottish travel tech company, Hop Software, so that they can introduce a property management system to help operate more efficiently. We've worked with Forbes of Kilkenny, who are thinking about how do they retain their staff. So we are working with them at the moment to do better staff communication. And Old Mill in Killearn, where we've introduced some data analytics to help them optimize their staff scheduling and also manage their inventory. And they're working with NextChain, the company I mentioned before, to do some great work there. We've also done some work with visitor attractions in the borders. We've introduced contactless donation. We've also introduced membership management tools. Perhaps more interesting, or perhaps more sort of weird, we are working with the Great Tapestry of Scotland to implement non-fungible tokens, which is a really cool and interesting way to experiment with blockchain technology in the attraction sector. And we're going to be issuing those in the next couple of weeks. So I recommend you get down to a Tapestry and to be the first to claim some of those NFTs for the Great Tapestry of Scotland. So I've gone over my time, very sorry, but please do join the community if you're a tourism, hospitality or travel tech company. I can share links afterwards. We have an online course for tourism and hospitality businesses that can work so that you can work out how you can bring in technology into your business. And we are funded by, of course, Scottish Enterprise, Edinburgh Innovations and the Futures Institute. So thanks so much for your time and look forward to having a chat now.
Thank you so much, Joss. That was great. A lot to take in there at warp speed, but sounds like some great work's going on, and we all know how critical the tourism and hospitality and visitor economy is to the city. So some of the innovations that you've discussed and that your programme is working on there, I'm sure will be incredibly welcome, particularly given how difficult times have been of late for that particular sector. So thank you so much for taking us through that. I'm going to open the floor now to questions. There's nothing in the chat as yet. I've got a question that could kick us off if you like, but please do raise your electronic hand. We do also, just to let you know that there are some useful links in the chat now. So Stephanie has put some links in about how you can get more involved and find out more about some of the elements of the work that we've heard this morning. And Joss has just put his details in as well, if you'd like to follow up with him. I see we've got a question from Melinda, so I'm going to come to you, Melinda, for your question. Thank you.
Thank you. So first off, Joshua, amazing. I just want to do this. I know when you started Travel Tech, right, what you have accomplished is absolutely amazing, and I'm so excited. I have 2 pages of notes just from yours, and I didn't do all of the screen prints of your slides, so I hope the slides will be shared later on. My one question though, the collaborative aspect that you put in about a business to use when people will come, your East Lothian on the beaches, how will the people, and if you continue to do that, I highly suggest you tell STA, Scottish Tech Army, about that, because that sounds like an app that could just fly across Scotland. But how will the businesses learn to use the data? How does that step?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And there's actually an awful lot of these types of projects going on at the moment. So in the Cairngorms, there's a great travel tech company in Fife called Reveille that are putting sensors in there. They're also doing it in Loch Lomond and Trossachs. And yeah, it's fantastic. So one of the critical parts of that project was so that actually to help people discover the businesses that are close to the beaches as well. So these small, cafes or pubs or restaurants could access it. So we made sure we got point of interest data included into the app. Now, people don't just download apps. So we need an East Lothian Council put a big effort in the next few weeks to really push a marketing campaign into Edinburgh to get people to download those apps so you can find it. And so when you're using it, you will have all of the local attractions and things while you're there. Now, the point that you made is really important. And we also said that dashboard should first be available to the park rangers so that they can make sure they clean the bins and all that stuff, make it really nice. But it should also be made available to all of those business groups. So it's not happening yet, but we hope by the end of the year, that data platform of all like this beach is busy now, this beach is quiet, and then some of that longer term data will be made available. So some of the analytics will be made in sort of like reports every quarter. But critically, if you are having a surge of visitors to Gullin, for example, that the local businesses there will be able to see that and maybe able to have sort of corresponding geo-targeted adverts and things like that, so you can try and get people into it. So there are a few ways we're trying to support that economic growth mission.
Okay, and what about engaging with the chambers so that they could help those businesses understand the flow of humans and potential opportunities for them to grow their businesses?
That's a really great idea. And actually, I'll go back to the team and say, look, how can we do routine presentations or ways that we can get that information in the best or most conducive way for people to take action upon that data?
Yeah, because I think you'd find some chambers around, on the outskirts of the hubs would really look at that and think, oh, it's really great to have Sally's truck of, taco heaven at that place at that time. And I know we're only talking about little businesses, but it makes such a difference to a community. So absolutely fabulous.
No, thanks, Melinda. I also wanted to say thank you too, because Skyscanner have been hiring through CodeClan recently. And I was chatting to the chief engineering officer at Skyscanner a couple of weeks ago, and they're back in Scotland in a big way, hiring a lot of people, trying to do a lot more work. So that's really exciting. I think CodeClan did an amazing job trying to bring them back in as well.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Melinda, for that and for the response, Josh, and thanks for the push for the chambers there. Yeah, absolutely happy to get involved, Josh, and support that in any way that we can. We do work very closely with our other regional chambers. We have a sort of network, a small network group set up. So anything you wanted to do on that level, we could share with those regional chambers as well, so that you've got that regional approach. So please just let us know. Any other questions, or I've got a couple I can chuck in unless anyone else has got anything they'd like to flag or raise. Melinda, again, over to you.
I came to engage today, so I'm going to go back. I think it was Allison. In your aspect in your data skills for work, there was two things. You had 12 plus partners in the data work skills area. Is that on a website someplace? And the reason I'm asking is that there's so many good intentions here. And what I want to make sure is that CodeClan doesn't step into a space that is already managing skills, right? It's a pie of skills. I would like to try to make sure that we don't overlap. Well, we can overlap, but not ignore an area and have too many in one area. And then the second question on that was all about the teacher training. Kind of curious on that one.
Yeah, okay, I agree with you, Melinda. It's a really busy market, isn't it? And actually we've had discussions with SDS about this, because it's about to get a whole lot busier with the AI strategy and data strategy and digital strategy training plans coming out.
And the climate one, you can't do climate without data. There's
exactly.
No way.
So I was on a call actually with government about that. How do we join this up and make sure that we are complementing each other rather than competing? Because there's so many pots of funding as well as provision out there. So what we're doing, the Data Skills for Work team are leading on, is mapping, using their data skills framework, mapping local provision and seeing where the gaps are. So that data worker piece, for example, which isn't your high-end programmers, but it's people getting more familiar with using Excel and so on. There's a lot of gaps in that market. Mm-hmm. So we're working with the colleges at the moment to say, what could you put on there? People want to do these bite-sized interventions as well. So Edinburgh College are about to stand up a boot camp for next summer, which is really interesting. So look out for that. But again, it's making sure we don't compete with what you're doing. So I do think there is a lot of information in the Data Skills for Work team and on their portal, Melinda. So a conversation with Anna or others might be a good starting point. But I think nationally, it's actually something government needs to be a bit smarter about. And then we've got the Stern Review as well. There's so much going on in this space that we are at risk of reinventing the wheel all over the place, especially with regional initiatives.
Yes, the Edinburgh Napier one that came out, we have something identical. And it really kind of smacked me in the face to go, okay, those are free. We have to go juggle it. And I get it. We're trying to get out there and hit a population. The more we can touch, the better, right? I'm going for the big mission statement. But connecting certain areas to give short, sharp courses to what I always say, the individuals that are at our Sainsbury's checkout, right? They don't have jobs anymore, and because there's we all now do it, but they have such good data skills and they don't know it. Right? Mm-hmm. Those little short courses that we can build the confidence of those individuals to get into the data stuff. So I'll go back and work with Data for Skills and how they're using out.
I mean, market segmentation is the answer, isn't it? Because there's a huge number of people to upskill. It's just making sure we provide products and routes in that suit all of the market, I guess.
Yeah, and it's the roots in that I think is the biggest, and hopefully SDS will be launching their digital skills pipeline initiative again soon. And that if we can really push pots and pans and getting energy out there to get people, especially women and girls, to understand that data isn't scary, and that they can have a huge career in this space. It'd be fabulous.
Well, our funding, Data Skills Credit Fund, is really aimed at those people who are going to be displaced, particularly women, in retail and beyond. So yeah, we can work together on that, I think. And the schools question, you were asking about teacher upskilling. Yeah, so we're working through a number of routes. One, we've been running a seminar series to encourage existing teachers to think about using data within their curricular areas. To be honest, because of COVID and the crisis effectively that's been in schools over the last year, we haven't had the numbers we'd hoped for some of those events, and they've also been online, but we are going to try again with new models, different timings and so on. But this Internet of Things rollout's providing a really useful hook.
Good.
So, the kit's going into the schools, it's visible, teachers see an opportunity to use it. And we are setting up knowledge sharing communities through school clusters that, as that kit rolls out. And we already had a best practice event last week where teachers in schools that already got the kit gave some insight into some of the things that have been revealed by having sensors. Apparently there was an earthquake on the other side of the world, I can't remember where it was now, that was picked up in a school in Midlothian through one of their sensors. And that generated a whole load of conversations. There's also been some spikes in CO2 at 5 in the morning, and nobody knows what that's been about. So these sensors are revealing quite a lot of things that are, encouraging a wider range of teachers into the conversation than there might have been if we just kind of got computer science teachers to do more of what they've been doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are using that as a hook at the moment to generate those conversations.
Do you use Census as the kit provider?
We use a range of providers, but we want to engage more with Census because I think they could partner with us a lot more meaningfully than, Scotland IS has talked about bringing them to the table, but there's a cost to it. So we are just working it through. It's early days. The kit started going out in November. So, but I think that's a lot of mileage there.
Yeah.
So any ideas, be keen to talk to you about it.
Absolutely, because they are looking to build some kind of skills package because they don't have one. So that what you found, I happily work with you and Paul. We're in there all the time. We've kind of put some stuff together around how we could put skills around IoT, because mostly it's Python, coding, and data, right? And that's something that CodeClan loves to do. So we're trying to figure out how to build this, and this might be a great initiative. So
it'd be great if we can bring that down to school pupil age. Exactly. And we've got those in primary and secondary schools. So yeah, could be quite interesting. Let's catch up on that.
Thank you. End of my questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melinda, and thanks, Alison, for the answers there. A question from me then, a sort of general, more broader question, I suppose, for all three of our speakers today. And I know that you've each sort of touched on this to varying levels of detail, but how can businesses in Edinburgh and the wider region get engaged with the various elements of the programme? How can they get involved? How can we try to bring this to life a little more, I guess, for more businesses, and also more, and I use this phrase in want of a better one, traditional businesses, who that perhaps don't necessarily see or understand the potential of the data that they naturally gather just during the course of doing their business, and how useful and what opportunities that could provide. How do we do that? How do we get that word out there a little bit more and really engage with those businesses, or is it too early for that yet?
I would pick up. I think we'll stay in this kind of skills and talent domain. First of all, of course, in Alison's DDI Skills Gateway, there's the data skills for work track there, which makes it possible for companies to kind of update their staff and knowledge about data opportunities, get involved in that work. But then, so that's a concrete ongoing activity. Then, during the next couple of years, we are also going to see a significant amount of more activity by the university in collaboration with local companies to engage student teams and companies in joint projects around data challenges. That's one of the big aspirations of the university, is that we want to provide potentially thousands of experiential learning opportunities for students, because that is something students absolutely value, and our vice principal students is keen to really change the way we do that at the moment. I mean, currently we do classical student placements, but instead of the placements, what we do want to do is more managed, tailor-made projects which tackle a challenge which a company has identified. And that's the idea has been imported from Sydney, where they run thousands of these every year. And they ramped it up in 5 years from 0 to 8,500 students which are involved in these projects. So that's something which the university aspires to do. And DDI, of course, this is not limited only to data, but we already have activities, for example, in Students as Change Agents program, in which we do combine external challenge owners with multidisciplinary student teams with very good results. So in a concrete terms, if you have a data challenge, especially around kind of a societal aspects of business, you know, how do you measure, let's say, environmental impact of investment decisions, kind of things, then we would be keen to see if we can build that into a concrete sort of a bite-sized challenge which the companies could help, students could help companies to solve. They are being coached by professionals, so the results have been good until now from the first dozens of projects we have run on this domain. I would see maybe those for starters. Then further in the future, the Edinburgh International Data Facility with the sort of a data sharing capabilities is only coming online now, and we expect that we would have then opportunity to share and access data from multiple domains through that facility, also for private companies. We already have the financial data linked to our Smart Data Foundry, but that's mostly limited to financial companies. But there will be data sets, data resources which are more generically available for different stakeholders in the region. And I think in Josh's domain, certainly the data resources could be one of the ways with which many companies could utilize when EIDF makes those available.
Yeah, 100%. John, is it right to come in?
Absolutely, yeah.
Student projects, obviously. I mean, everything Yamo said is absolutely right. And like, I think sometimes smaller businesses feel like they're not appropriate for sort of data science or data analytics ones, but they are. Like every single one is, because everyone's going to have some level of data, and it doesn't have to be the most sophisticated thing. It could just even be as simple as you having a better Excel spreadsheet that gives you some sort of automated visual that helps you manage your finances. Like that is literally one thing we did with the old mill in Cologne. You know, they had a problem. One of their problems was just being able to track the inventory. We were like, well, we could do all this fancy stuff, or we could just update your Excel spreadsheet. They've done that, and it's already better. We've done some fancy stuff too, but you know, it's there are ways. So I think, like, if you're a small business, you often don't have the time to look at your data, and you might not have the technical ability to do it. You won't have access to specialist staff. So I think often the way to them accessing data insights is having something that allows them to see it. So either that is you using a small bit of technology that is like for example, a staff scheduling bit of software that we've put into these businesses, and that can be a really interesting way of doing it. But the other way that I think, and this is kind of what I touched upon at the end of the presentation, is if you're a group of businesses, especially in tourism and hospitality, where you're all interconnected, you know, you rely upon each other to some extent, because if you're tourists are going to visit multiple places, is how can you come together, perhaps share a resource, could be sharing a student who could work across all of you. And have a look and help you sort out that business, that data. You can either share a data analytics resource and then get each of your individual business insights from that shared resource. But then critically, you could start pooling that data and then seeing what actually is happening across a street or a destination. And I think that's a really interesting way of potentially doing it. And that's what we're trying to do with these travel tech collectives projects, which is if we can get a group of businesses. We're doing it with Inverclyde, slightly bizarrely enough, where we're bringing these Inverclyde hospitality and tourism businesses together. We're going to see what their problems are, match them to tech companies, but then bring them a shared data resource to analyze their data so that each individual business has some some data analytics just for them. And then we're going to do that collective analysis as well. So I think that's something which is really interesting. And if Edinburgh businesses want to do that, then let's get that happening. We'll try and get some project funding going. And I'd be really keen to do that. Yeah, that's probably enough for me.
Brilliant. Alison?
Yeah, I mean, Yarmo's covered the skills. I see that Josh had already put the link in for data skills for work, so apologies, I've reshared that. And also the placement scheme, you know, again, Josh touched on the fact that we have a lot of students studying data science and computer science across our universities, and they're looking for placements. They could help you in your company or organization to transform, really. I had a question for Josh, actually. Sorry, I shouldn't be asking questions, but
not at all.
Are you working with the bids at all? Because, you know, my previous role in the council, I know how critical data was to the central business district, business improvement district. For example, you know, we had data counters on Princes Street and used other data to inform their activity. That seems quite a good route in as well.
Yeah, we've done a bit with just outside of Edinburgh, Inverness, Loch Ness bid, and I can't remember which one there, but at Central Edinburgh, we've done a little bit before, because I know that they're trying to understand the footfall and movement across Princes Street, and that's going to be really critically important because of changing use of the buildings on Princes Street and things like that. Being open and honest, I think we need more sensors to understand the movement of people in the city, and maybe I should be going back internally and seeing what we can do there, because we've tried a bit, but I know that Central Edinburgh are sort of carrying the can on that at the moment, so they're having to put a lot of money in and do the counting, and we could probably do what we're doing in East Lothian, perhaps in Central Edinburgh as well.
Yeah, one other thing I'd spoken to Liz about was a competition for school children across the region to think about how data could transform the city centre of Edinburgh or something like that. I'd be quite keen to look into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some really great ideas there. I think one of the things that we find was powerful is just that the sharing of stories. So some of the stuff that you talked about, Ryan, just in terms of, you know, businesses like me and understanding that businesses like mine can learn from this and can create opportunities from this and can really revolutionise what they're doing relatively easily. I think actually physically seeing that in the form of case studies or actually speaking to people is incredibly powerful as a way of demonstrating impact and efficacy, really.
We're going to do an evaluation of these pilot projects 6 months after to see actually how much time has been saved, how much money is potentially increased, so that we've got real hard figures to share. So we'll make sure to do that with the Chamber.
Please, that would be great, because I know that in Glasgow, so the Glasgow Chamber of Commerce, they've got a kind of dashboard situation set up. They used some COVID funding for that. They used some of the recovery money that the Scottish Government allocated to them and they did it as a sort of way of benchmarking and then measuring recovery. And it's a really clever tool, actually, and it's a great way for all of the actors in the city really to see what's going on and to pick up forecasts and trends and be able to anticipate. So you know, I think Edinburgh absolutely needs something similar. You know, we need the kind of robust collection of that data, and especially with our festivals and things, you know, I think we just really need that high level of insight. So anything we can do again to support on that, please let us know. Does anyone else have any questions? I've got another couple here I can throw in unless anyone else wants to pick anything up. No? Okay. One thing I wanted to ask was around climate and climate strategy, and I know, Josh, you touched on it in your presentation, but again, just wondering how is the DDI project linking in with the issue of climate, and how are you supporting that? How can you support that? And particularly, I mentioned at the start when we did our introduction, I did the Chamber update, we are very engaged on the just economic transition piece. So not only the journey to net zero, but that is being done in a just and fair way and an inclusive way, and is bringing all of the citizens of the city and the region with us. So can you perhaps each talk a little bit about that piece in relation to the parts of the programme that you're responsible for?
Maybe on a high level, I have to admit that we do need to increase the priority of the sustainability and climate in DDI. The original thinking indeed has been a sort of underlying theme which cuts through everything, but as we know, sometimes what can happen is that the underlying theme isn't actually actioned very strongly, and I think we probably are in some aspects we might not have be as focused on the topic as we could. In concrete terms, the Edinburgh International Data EIDF, which of course is a energy consumpting hungry unit, which creates eats electricity and creates heat, that is being developed in a way which stores then that excess heat to underground, and it can be used then and is being used to district heating systems for the nearby neighborhoods. So there's kind of a circulatory economy energy system in place there. That's a domain which we do want to explore further. How can we ensure that the increase of data doesn't just create more emissions, but we can tackle that in these facilities themselves. It's going to be especially critical if we and when we get the so-called exascale computer here, the first in the UK. That's our next big goal. The amount of energy those things use is somewhere in the range of the energy used in the city of Edinburgh. So, well, maybe not quite, but you catch my drift. It requires a power station of its own, and that means that it has to be built in a way where that heat doesn't go to waste, but can be used for the other purposes. But then on the domain of our industry sectors, for example, in open finance, the Smart Data Foundry team is very keen to expand the scope from financial data to understanding the impacts of these decisions to people. So there's a very strong inclusivity and citizen aspect in the Smart Data Foundry, and they want to ensure that when, for example, different financial incentives are being developed, which will then impact the decisions of companies, those will be done in a way which doesn't then disproportionately, for example, impact people who are less well off. So all those data models those are built into the equations there, and I think that's one of the key things which we can and should do, is that we build a sort of environmental impact trigger and measurement into our data analytics systems, and we try to create mechanisms in which we can incentivize good behaviors and disincentivize bad behaviors, both regarding us as individuals, but especially companies which provide the services for us.
Brilliant, thanks. I think it would be great, actually, just while you were speaking, thinking we probably need to involve you guys in the Just Economic Transition group and the piece that we're working on. I think you'd be a great addition to that and would add a tremendous amount of value. So maybe we can pick that up separately afterwards. So Josh, Alison, who would like to come in next on that?
Alison, quick, Josh, if you want.
Do you want to go in? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we're very aware of the relationship between data and climate change, and I touched on one of the live lessons that we ran during COP, and we will be rerunning that and adapting it so that the link is very much made in the school space. The colleges are also looking to embed climate change type skills as part of their core skills program, and we are also becoming part of a core skills focus within the colleges. So we definitely are exploring very specifically how the two can come together. So it's on our radar, I think is what I'm saying. And we can't lose sight of it. So there's a huge opportunity, and I'd like to explore that further. There is also another skills gateway as part of the City Region deal, housing, construction and infrastructure, run out of Napier. And we're in discussion with them about how we partner up on some of their courses, which are reskilling people to ensure, installation of smart energy systems and so on. So we're on it, I think, is the answer.
Brilliant, thank you. Josh?
Yeah, I'll try and be quick. I've been a bit too long in the tooth in this one. But, there's 5 ways that tourism and hospitality, I guess, the 5 key areas around climate change. So one is obviously air transport, then ground transport, then food and supply chains, energy, and then behaviour change. And I think for air, it's the most obvious one. And the way the strategy of the UK government is going has been around biofuels. And like we could talk about this for ages, and we're going to have to probably reduce demand, to be honest, with air traffic, especially long haul, because that feels like that's obviously the biggest contributor. But there's some interesting data examples. So one is been, actually, it's a company, I've forgotten the name, unfortunately, I'll find it, a satellite company based in Edinburgh, and it's come through the University of Edinburgh's sort of spin out group. And what they try and do is verify, using satellite data, supply chains. And actually, one of the biggest problems of biofuels for airlines is that you create these biofuels by tearing down like forests and other sort of carbon capturing resource. So actually, if you can use satellites to verify the source of that biofuel, then that's actually a really critical part of the supply chain verification stuff. Another way, we're working with the Data Lab, of course, so with the MSc Innovation Week. So we've got about 100 MSc students all in data science. And what we're doing is looking at the typical routes in the flights coming into Scotland, and then thinking, okay, what is the other routes you could take? So using data to try and map out if you get there by train and others, and also try and map out the sort of climate impact of each of those flights. And then thinking, well, which market should we focus on in terms of our marketing from Visit Scotland perspective, to see like how can we incentivize people to come from the lowest carbon destinations, because we need tourism for many reasons. Connectivity is so important, and Gordon Dewar from the airport will certainly tell you he had a great talk at ETAG last week, which was very sort of infusing on that. From food, I think I talked a little bit about it already, around local supply chains, how we can optimize those delivery mechanisms as well. I was chatting to someone in Inverness, and they've got great produce, but he can't access it. East Lothian the same, all this beautiful seafood, and so much of it was being sent abroad. And how can we make sure we're using more of our local produce? And that's critical. But even with beef, which is criticised a lot for high carbon emission, but if you're buying from good local farms, the carbon emissions are much, much lower. So that type of thing is really, really important. And then behavior change, which I think just comes down to kind of counting. It was like what I was trying to say around Skyscanner, the counting and displaying it in how you can make choices. And we need to be doing that with hotels, we need to, with short-term rentals and various other things like that. Because then if people are making choices based on what their carbon emissions are, then that is it's a big driver of changing that whole sort of demand and supply and economic market around tourism and hospitality. So I think there's loads that we can be doing. We need to be doing more, and we need to be doing it right now. So hopefully through Travel Tech and through DDI, we can do more of that as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I've got one very final question before we close, and we've only got a few minutes left. And this is a question again for all three of you. I'd like to know, what do you know? You've each been involved with the project for quite some time now. I'd like to know, what do you know now that you wish you'd known at the start of the project? And are there things, or is there anything that you would do differently, knowing what you know now about where you are? Sorry if that's a bit of a tricky question, but
I can kick off if it's easy. I would have demanded more funding, because I think skills is key to delivery here. Yeah. And we, as you mentioned in the introduction, I was the project manager for the city deal, and we put in a bid for the skills program, which was at least double what we got. Wow. And I think we should have been more demanding of government, and insisted that it's the kind of the hook that keeps it all together. Mm-hmm. So I would have definitely made more of a case for additional funding. Mm.
Well, the program as a whole is going pretty well, but of course there are things which could be done differently. I would have had the environmental and climate impact at the forefront from the start, for sure, so that we don't have to sort of retrofit it in, as we in some aspects are now partially doing. And then I guess second would be the even more relentless focus on building everything based on multidisciplinary partnerships, so that there's would be a sort of a threshold that the stuff we do would be something which has an impact beyond the university and beyond the kind of usual suspects. Mm-hmm. Even though as I said, we are doing well on the partnerships front, but there's been some as in everything, trial and error kind of punts of things.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, the final thing for me, I think it is tourism and hospitality in particular suffers from a bit of a lack of data. So a lot of it is held by bigger companies that can show sort of movement patterns or spending profiles, or when we're implementing sensors and you're capturing it. I think, if we're doing it now, but it would be nice to have started it perhaps a couple of years ago and actually brought in that data earlier and built teams around it and really start experimenting with it a little bit more, because it's quite expensive, but I think as a collective we could perhaps do more. And actually that is starting to happen now because of the pandemic. We're starting to understand, okay, we need to know what's actually happening on our high streets. We need to know what's happening in our, all that sort of thing. So that'd be mine.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the session then this morning. I was going to attempt to sum that up, but actually I think it's beyond my summing up capabilities. Other than I think it's been hugely interesting to hear about the progress that's being made, tremendous progress being made in a very short space of time, and by the sounds of it, much more coming in a very short space of time again over the next couple of years. Really excited to see how the hubs turn out, and really excited to see how we can work and support the work that you're doing, and try to build that engagement with the broader business community with you, and always here to support and happy to work with you on that. So can I just thank profusely all of our speakers today. It's been an incredible insight, and it's been great to hear the work that you've all been doing. I think we should do these much more often. It would be great to just sort of keep more up to speed with what you're doing, and happy to do that. Can I also thank the Chamber team for all their organisation today, as always, and for keeping us all right and making sure that we all know where we're supposed to be when we're supposed to be there. And can I thank all of you for attending and for all of your engagement, and for your thoughts and contributions today. There's been lots of links in the chat, as you'll have seen, touch points that you can get in touch with our speakers and the various programmes. Likewise, come to any of us at the Chamber if you'd like to engage a bit more, and we can help facilitate that for you. But thanks once again. It's been great to get this update. We will do more of these in the future, I think. And thanks, Jamo, for that suggestion you've just put in the chat. And I look forward to seeing you all at a Chamber event sometime soon. Thank you very much, and have a nice day. Thank you. Bye.
Same to you. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.